Hello there. This is Peggy Lamb with the Abundant Body Worker, and I'm so honored that you've taken your valuable time to spend it with me today in this lesson 1 of the Amazing Rotator Cuff, the shoulder complex simplified, understanding the rotator cuff. And it just shows your dedication to learning and your dedication to improve the outcomes for your clients. So again, thank you for being here. And it just seems like everybody and their dentist has a shoulder issue or rotator cuff problem. So let me start today's lesson with a quick story. One time I had a live teaching of my Releasing the Rotator Cuff course in Seattle. And on the plane there, I got into a conversation with my seatmate. And when he learned why I was going there, he immediately said, "Oh my God, my shoulder really hurts. And, it was really hard putting on my shirt today. And I just don't want to go to the doctor because he's going to tell me I need surgery." So I was able to kind of walk him back from the plank and explain that there are many non-invasive, non-surgical options out there. And I talked to him in depth about it. And it was really beautiful to see the anxiety and the fear kind of calm down, and his breathing deepened and he got calmer, just knowing that it wasn't a matter of surgery or nothing else. Okay, next stop is that I get on the shuttle bus to my hotel. And again, I'm the only one on there, and I get into a conversation with the driver. And when he learns why I'm there, he goes, "My wife, her shoulder is really bothering her, and she went to the doctor. She's on anti-inflammatories, but it doesn't seem to be getting any better." So I had the same conversation with him, and it was, again, really nice to see that he understood that there were other options available. Next stop is the hotel, and the front desk person brought me to my conference room, and when she learned I was there, she said, "My mother's shoulder it's just not getting better. She's been in physical therapy for a while, and it just seems to make it worse." And there are many great PT clinics out there. So this is not a dig on PTs, but some PT clinics just have a paradigm of exercise. So I explained that to her, and that some massage therapy or body work of kind would help the tissue, the muscles relax enough and lose their adhesion, so they would be more receptive to the exercises. So that was 3 conversations in a matter of I don't know, 5 hours, because I live in Austin and I was flying to Seattle. But it just kind of really showed me how little education there is out there about non-surgical procedures, and that it's so common. So you get good at treating shoulders, I promise you, you'll be booked out for 6 months if that's what you want. Okay, so I am going to start my slideshow. And we'll get started with today's lesson. Just give me a second here to get everything all ready. So again, this is the Shoulder Complex Simplified, Understanding the Rotator Cuff. And in this foundational knowledge, you'll be able to understand why your clients might be presenting with the symptoms they're presenting with. And in today's lesson, we're going to review the anatomy, and we'll have a lesson in shoulder mechanics. Now, if you're new to my world, just a little bit about me. I'm the founder of the Abundant Body Worker and Massage Publications. I've been providing resources for many years to body workers of all kinds, including business coaching. And of course, I am a massage therapist, body worker myself for a very long time now. And I'm still so passionately in love with this field. Never stop learning, never stop growing. I've presented for most of the major organizations out there, including the National AMTA Convention and many AMTA state chapter conventions. Now, I suffered a rotator cuff injury over 20 years ago, and that brought me to become an expert in treating them. And I've helped thousands of body workers upgrade their skills in my Releasing the Rotator Cuff workshops. And I've helped hundreds of clients, including body workers in my area, restore health to their shoulders. I am so happy to help you. If you have any questions about today's presentation, please shoot me an email, theabundantbodyworker@mail.com. Okay, here we go. And in this slide, you see the rotator cuff acting as guy wires. This is a posterior view. So they come in at different angles, creating a snug socket or a snug fit for the head of the humerus in the socket. And that's one way that they stabilize. Now, there are other ways that they stabilize. The rotator cuff also counteracts the upward pull of the deltoid during abduction and flexion by pulling down and in on the head of the humerus, providing joint centration. So let's unpack that a little bit. When you flex or abduct your arm, the deltoids, there are 3 heads, very strong muscles, are very active. And they're so strong and powerful that they pull the head of the humerus superiorly or up towards the ceiling. But the cuff comes in and pulls down and in on the head of the humerus, keeping it snug as a bug in the rug in the glenoid fossa. But what if it doesn't? What if it's late in firing? And we're going to look at that because this is so common in people. Now, in this graphic, you see the tan humerus neutral, but here is a humerus, brown humerus in abduction. Now, over here, you see the acromion process. Notice the relationship of these 2 bones. So there's a possibility of collision there. Now, what you're not seeing is all the soft tissue and other structures that cover these. But let's say that the cuff doesn't fire on time to counteract that upward pull of the deltoid. It fires late, or sometimes not at all. But this is very common. So there's a mini collision there of the head of the humerus and the acromion process, meaning there's micro tearing of the structures covering those bones. This is common. The body heals. The body is an amazing self-healing organism. But over time, if this happens, 3, 4, 5 times a day, eventually there is going to be a more serious injury. So maybe you have a client who says, I just woke up this morning and my shoulders just really hurt and it was hard to move them. This is something that may be happening. And you might be asking, well, why isn't the cuff firing on time? And there's a lot of answers to that question. And that's where you have to become a bit of a detective. The cuff also works as a decelerator. So when there's accelerated internal rotation, such as when throwing a ball, there is the follow through. This is the last figure on the right. So there's a braking system built in to the rotator cuff. And of course, the shoulder, the ligaments do play a part here. Infraspinatus and teres minor are very important players in the braking system, and we'll unpack that a little bit more in the lesson on the infraspinatus and teres minor. Another function is to centrate the head of the humerus in the center of the glenoid fossa and to maintain this position. This is where it gets a little more tricky, such in activities such as pushing, pulling, and throwing. Now, you might be saying, well, you already went over the centration, but it gets even finer than that, okay? Because the head of the humerus is in the glenoid fossa, but it can glide anteriorly or posteriorly, even a millimeter, okay? And it's more common for it to glide in the anterior direction. And if it stays there, it's going to cause irritation in the joint capsule. So be on the lookout for that, because sometimes a client will come in and say, you know, it just really hurts, and they'll point to the front of their shoulder, and you may think, well, that's where pec major attaches. Pec major is not the local problem. It's part of a bigger problem, mostly because they're overdeveloped on so many people. So this anterior glide syndrome is very common. So these muscles also provide movements. Subscap, internal rotation. You can see it in the baseball player's right arm. Now, subscap provides 50% of the force of the rotator cuff. That's half the amount of force. This is a big muscle that's very strong and often neglected. And of course, we'll talk about that more in the lesson on subscapularis. Infraspinatus and teres minor, external rotation, as in this javelin player's arm, and supraspinatus, abduction, as in this really happy leaper to your right. So these are very busy muscles. They're constantly multitasking. So say thank you to your rotator cuff. So here's our recap. It stabilizes, it centers the humerus in its socket, it counteracts the upward pull of the deltoid during abduction and flexion, it decelerates, and it moves the humerus. Wow, they're working all the time, right? Yeah, they are. They're pretty amazing. And that's why we have the shoulder is the most mobile joint in the human body. And of course, since it's so mobile, it's prone to more injury. And that includes we as body workers, we're at high risk. Anybody who has a manual job using their arms a lot, such as a carpenter and body workers, we have to take care of our own shoulders and understand what's going on. Now, the majority of shoulder stabilization is attributed to the combined function of the cuff and the ligaments. Now, the rotator cuff plays a more dominant role in dynamic stabilization, and the ligaments providing static stability. So dynamic stabilization would be all the movements. So if you put these two together, the cuff accounts for over 80% of shoulder stabilization. It's got a big job. Now, there are many studies out there related to the incidence of rotator cuff tears, and this one revealed that almost 30% of patients' visits to an orthopedic clinic are the result of rotator cuff pathology. That's a lot of people. And procedures done to treat rotator cuff pathology are among the most common of all orthopedic procedures. And I interpret that orthopedic procedures are typically surgical in nature. But we want to help people before it gets to the stage of needing surgery. And so this is a wonderful email that I got from a fairly new therapist who worked at one of the chains, maybe Massage Envy. And she was, again, early on in her career, she took this course, my Releasing the Rotator Cuff course, and she worked on a client with very limited range of motion. Now, I love the synchronicity here that soon after she learned this material, she got a client with that she was able to apply these techniques and the foundational knowledge. Now, this woman was scheduled for surgery, but she decided to give massage therapy a try. And I love that attitude in people, staying curious and exploring other options. So over 5 sessions, this woman got her range back, no pain. She did the at-home exercises that I suggest, and she's maintained her freedom. And yes, she canceled her surgery. That's beautiful. So imagine you getting an email like that from somebody you worked on, thanking you for your work. This is huge for people. When there's a shoulder injury, it really impacts every aspect of your life, and it's scary. So we want to bless the world with the work that we do, and you already do that. Now, let's take a look about why this is so widespread. Like I said, everybody and their dentist. And I am speaking about a general population here, not really speaking like if you are a specialist in sports massage and you're working with baseball players or professional or non-professional. General population. This is your paradigm. There is a natural strength and balance between internal and external rotators. There's weak and overstretched external rotators. That's your infraspinatus and teres minor. Adaptively shortened internal rotators. That's everybody going to the gym and working the pecs and the lats. And weak scapular stabilizers because they're not working with the posterior muscles. And this happens all the time. And this is what we have to address here. So I hope that makes sense to you to use as a paradigm. Now, even the most educated of massage and bodywork consumers may not be aware that massage therapy can help and often heal a rotator cuff injury. They may not know that their shoulder pain is related to the rotator cuff. So here's a case history from my practice. A 60-year-old active, healthy retiree came in. He's been an avid consumer of massage therapy, but he woke up one morning with pain and decreased range of motion with abduction and external rotation. Remember, I spoke about that. You may have people coming in, God, I just woke up one morning and it was there and I don't understand it. Can you relate that back to one of the functions of the cuff, or really all of the functions? Remember how the rotator cuff counteracts the upward pull of the deltoid? Well, that's probably at play. That was definitely at play with this guy. And it's at play with most of the clients that I've seen. He had no idea what caused it. Remember the micro tearing that can happen when the cuff doesn't fire on time and there's that mini collision between the head of the humerus and the acromion process. Now, he did go to his massage therapist that he loved. The treatment felt good, but it didn't help his shoulder pain. He tried an LMT, same result. He went to his doctor. So now he's starting to get scared. And the doctor said it was age-related. He took some anti-inflammatory medication. The doctor said, well, you may need some surgery since you're 60 years old. He refused. And over a 3-year period, his shoulder got slightly better, but he could still only abduct to 90 degrees, and it was still fairly, still painful. But the pain had reduced. He did what a lot of people do. He just pretty much ignored it. So I did one session with him and full range of motion was restored. And I'm not trying to brag here. I just have a lot of experience with this. And the question is, what did I do that the other massage therapists didn't do? And since I wasn't there, I don't know, but I can make an educated guess. What I've heard over the years is that if you don't have specific training in this, you'll just go to the traps and the rhomboids and levator and the neck and the deltoids, all good stuff. And it will certainly help with the parasympathetic system. But it's not going to solve the underlying issue, which is at the stabilizing area in the cuff and the scapula stabilizers. So I remember with him, his scapula was really glued down to his thorax. He had a lot of adhesions in his subscap and other areas. His infraspinatus and teres minor were very much on what I call locked long. They needed to learn how to externally rotate again. But the reason why it only took one session with him is because he had been getting massage most of his life. So his tissue was so receptive. He was an ideal client, really. And, afterwards, he just thought I walked on water. I don't walk on water. I just have this training. Okay. So I'd like you to write down 3 things you learned today, because that helps anchor the information in your brain and your nervous system so you can digest and metabolize it just like you would food. And to take it a step farther and really get a grasp on it, email them to me or tell somebody else. And that's how you retain information. And I will see you in the next lesson, which is on the powerful subscapularis. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.